But whatever the issue might be over there, you do not stop a university from recruiting international students, let alone asking international students who are at the university to leave, many of whom who have nothing to do with any rules that may have been broken.
Let's speak now to Lord Bilimoria, chair of the All-Parliamentary Group of International Students here in the UK. Lord Bilimoria, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to speak to you. So then, when it comes to President Trump taking this action, I mean, he's within his rights, isn't he?
I find this completely unbelievable. In fact, just yesterday in Parliament, I was chairing an event for NISA, for the Indian international students in the UK, in my role as co-chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on International Students. And we were talking about the white paper on immigration in this country, which is talking about reducing the 2-year post-graduation work visa for international students, which I fought so hard to introduce in Parliament years ago, to reduce that from 2 years to 18 months. And then suddenly after that meeting, we get this news about Harvard. I mean, I just find it completely unbelievable. I'm an alumnus of Harvard Business School through executive education. Harvard is one of the finest universities in the world, and its excellence is based on having the brightest minds in the world over the centuries, and in particular, huge numbers of international students and international professors. Look at the Harvard Business School right now. The dean is of Indian origin, an Indian international student. The one before him was an Indian international student who was dean of the Harvard Business School. The professors of the business school, the professors of the university, 20% of the students at Harvard are international, and they choose the brightest people. And if you now stop them from recruiting international students, let alone asking international students who are there to leave, I mean, that's just unbelievable beyond any measure.
The Secretary of Homeland Security has accused Harvard of creating a hostile, quote, hostile environment for Jewish students. The administration's sort of made this case against universities where pro-Palestinian protests have occurred since Hamas's terrorist attack on October the 7th, 2023. And so that is the basis for this action, seemingly.
Well, the rise of anti-Semitism around the world is completely unacceptable. It is just awful, and I'm sorry, it is true. It is happening around the world, and protests by students at universities happen all around the world, including right here in the UK, including at my university, at Cambridge University. But protests have to be within the law, and protests cannot be disruptive. And to that extent, a university is responsible for making sure that is the case. But whatever the issue might be over there, you do not stop a university from recruiting international students, let alone asking international students who are at the university to leave, many of whom who have nothing to do with any rules that may have been broken.
Just a very quick final one for you, Lord Bilimoria. If Donald Trump picks this fight and continues this fight, which is based on kind of so-called woke issues at its heart, he's going to win, isn't he? He's got a track record of winning in this sort of sphere.
There's a limit to how far you can go. And I'm also all for wokeism going too far is a very bad thing, and no one supports that. But Donald Trump himself went to an Ivy League university. Harvard is one of the ultimate universities in the world from the Ivy League. You cannot prevent a top university like that from excelling. Even if it may have broken some rules, then it has to sort that out. But you don't tar everyone with the same brush, and every international student suffers when they've done nothing wrong, and the university on the whole. So I think this has got to be looked upon in proportion and not damaging the excellence of that university and the excellent American university. And we at British universities and American universities are the finest universities in the world by far. 50% of world leaders, by the way, as we speak, come from British universities and American universities. They're the strongest element of soft power for both our countries. We must never harm that.
Lord Bilimoria, chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on International Students, thank you for your time this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Stand up, Linda. You're doing so good. Education. We're bringing education back to the States, where it belongs. And she's been incredible. She's very upset with Harvard. They have $53 billion in a fund, and yet they want more grants. And it looks like we're not going to be giving them any more grants, right, Linda? And, a grant is at our discretion, and they're really not behaving well, so it's too bad. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Graduates of the Alabama class of 2025 standing here before you in this magnificent arena, it is clear to see the next chapter of the American story will not be written by the Harvard Crimson. It will be written by you, the Crimson Tide.
This administration has opened investigations into universities across the country for violating, we talk a lot about Supreme Court rulings. Universities across this country are in plain and direct violation of the Supreme Court's ruling that affirmative action, as in racial quotas and set-asides, are illegal. Students must be admitted to universities on a color-blind basis. But we have demonstrated through clear evidence that our university system, including our medical schools, and perhaps particularly our medical schools, are engaging in race-based discrimination, racial set-asides, racial quota schemes, and other efforts to evade the Supreme Court's ruling, and again, the plain text of federal statute. So universities are on notice, and universities are already facing the financial consequences of their noncompliance with federal law. The clearest example that we're all familiar with, of course, being Harvard, which is engaged in repeat, systemic, and sustained violations of federal civil rights law.
This is that threat and other universities is considering. And then a follow-up question on foreign policy. Can you give us an update on what the president hopes to come from the next round of talks with Iran?
Sure. First, when it comes to Harvard, as I said, the president has been quite clear they must follow federal law. He also wants to see Harvard apologize, and Harvard should apologize for the egregious anti-Semitism that took place on their college campus against Jewish American students. There were professors who said that he had engaged in discriminatory behavior against Jewish students. Of course, you had the former president of the university saying bullying and harassment depends on the context. You also had an encampment on Harvard Yard that we all saw play out before the cameras. The university failed to impose formal discipline on any students for this anti-Semitic conduct violations, including the occupation of a campus building and the disruption of classes with bullhorns. The president believes Harvard should apologize to its Jewish American students for allowing such egregious behavior. As for the tax-exempt status, I would defer you to the IRS for any updates. I do want to answer your question on Iran. Of course, the maximum pressure campaign on Iran continues, but as you know, the president has made it clear he wants to see dialogue and discussion with Iran while making his directive about Iran never being able to obtain a nuclear weapon quite clear. And the president spoke to the Sultan of Oman today, who helped facilitate these talks. I have a readout for all of you. He held a call with the Sultan of Oman today, and he thanked him for hosting the first direct meeting between the United States and Iran and emphasized the need for Iran to end its nuclear program through negotiations. The two leaders also discussed the United States' ongoing operations against the Houthis and emphasized that the Houthis will pay a severe price until they end their attacks on maritime traffic in the Red Sea. As you know, an additional negotiation between Steve Witkoff and Iran's representative has been scheduled for Saturday. And since these are ongoing negotiations, I have nothing more to add on that.